Chocolates is
Hey,
whoops.
listeners, welcome to a new episode of the New Standard. And as always, we are joined by my partner in crime on my left, Neil Coulong. What's up, Big Neil?
Lance, it's a bittersweet, hectic day here, certainly in the Coulong household. We saw the Steelers pull off a victory in Week 18, 28-14 over the hated Cleveland Browns, avenging an earlier loss this season as the Steelers claim third place in the AFC North for whatever that is worth. They did manage to beat all three AFC North teams this season. And guess what, Lance? Mike Tomlin has finished with a record over 500 for a 16th consecutive season.
Da, 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 da.
Choke on it. You love it. Deal with it. Go cry somewhere else.
Don't
I
go for
I
that
I I told
Argentina.
this to my wife right before we came on. That is my favorite tweet to send every single year, just because of how pissed off people get. I find it's not even funny. It's just kind of jokingly sad that there are people who actively root against their team because they don't like this record. They are so bothered by this. They have to chime in about it all season long. They have to assume baselessly that that's the team's aim, to do nothing more than win 9 games in a season, as if they had the power to transform the dung heap roster that they had last year into a team that was going to win 13 or 14 games right now. Guess where the Bills are right now? A dominant team. You know how good the Bills were when they went to Pittsburgh and pulled out low scoring win. What was that, back in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there?
Yeah, with Duck Hodges.
Yeah. You know how not good they were at that point? They were at best a 500 team, if I remember correctly. I think they might have won a playoff game first round that year. I think that's when they beat Houston. Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
that's the power
Exactly.
of Melon and Neil.
I
What's up, Ollie
all I will
Howard?
say is this. Probably. I'm not getting into it, but probably. I'm sure that's what people are pissed about.
What's up, Ollie Howard, Species 56? Also, want to give a big shout out to Alamander. I think a new listener to the show with the Mandalorian symbol as his little icon for his name. Make
Just
sure,
wasted no time either. Diving right in after
yeah,
Canada. Diving
yes,
right in.
yes, and we're going to get to
Love it.
that, and we're
Oh
and
yes.
we're and we're going to get to that for sure. Um, and before we do that, as always, if you want to like and subscribe to the show, Alamander, please hit the like and subscribe button. We are very close to being monetized. You can find a program on YouTube. Do a search for the New Standard and Lance Williams or Neil Coulong. And since the Steelers are not going to be in the playoffs, we're going to go back to probably once a week on Wednesdays, and we're going to do some breaking news shows as needed. And Neil, you interested in doing some playoff stuff? Breaking down some playoffs?
Do we want to get into that now? I'm not sure we're
No. I
entirely.
mean for like the weekend shows. You
Oh, for a
want
show, yeah.
want to
If
do some
people want to
playoffs?
listen in,
Yeah, we could do
I'll
some
I'll be
playoff
there.
stuff.
I'll be there for
Yeah,
all of it, kind of the same way we
yeah.
normally do.
So we'll do some playoff stuff. I'm not sure what the seedings are. Do the Chargers have the 5 seed?
I don't
I don't know.
know.
I'm just because I
I
know
know
that
Chargers.
I'm not sure because they still got to play today.
Yeah,
So
this is
we
all
won't
just
know
kind of up in the air.
till they play their game because I know the Ravens are going to lose.
Chargers are
But
the 5th seed right now, currently slated to travel to Jacksonville. You guys heard me talk about Jacksonville at the beginning of this season. Heading down to Duval to take on the pesky defensive-minded Jaguars in round 1, a game that I would absolutely want to watch. I'd be very excited to see that.
and before we jump into the game, I do want to jump into the comment from Blue Gold. And yeah, shout out to the Steeler players and coaches for not quitting on the season. And that leads me right into, before we jump into the game and we talk about the game, well, let's talk about the game a little bit. And then I'm going to queue up that comment again because it leads into another question that I have for you and that I have for listeners as well. What's your thoughts on this game? Let me ask you one thing about this game. And I think you could probably give some context to it. I don't go to a lot of games live. I haven't been to a game in a while. what is the process of, on the big run by Najee Harris in the red zone early in the game, when it looked like that he scored, that his knee didn't touch, and he crossed the goal line and scored? What's the process of the challenge? Do you think that play was shown on the jumbotron? Do you think the information came in quick enough for the sideline to be able to challenge that play? It seemed very interesting, and it seemed like a mistake that they did not challenge that play. Break it down, in your comments overall about the game, how that process works, and why do you think they did not challenge that big play?
They should have, certainly. It's early in the game. It's first down. I don't know about the rest of you. I don't have a remarkable high level of faith in the replay process or the officials overseeing it. That said, the decision, I can assure you, was made based strategically more than anything else. They didn't wait to look at it because they had what they wanted on the field, and they wanted to get to the line to run a QB sneak that they have run successfully many times. On top of that, they have a running back who rarely ever fumbles the ball. We can say that now without having to knock on wood because the season's over. And it would have been second down if it was overturned, and they would have been out of timeout. I don't think that there is a large incentive in the moment, in the second, to say, let's wait and see. And look, it was not clear he was not down. You did not see that immediately, okay? It wasn't until the replay came up, which nullifies my entire point. What I'm saying is, at the second that they had to challenge or not challenge, they had the personnel on the field that they wanted versus the defense that they wanted. They're going to rush to the line to try to catch them off guard because they're running a quarterback sneak. Didn't work out. No, you didn't. Don't tell me you did, because you didn't. You had a guess, okay? The official on the field who's next to the play, when you're 10,000 miles away from it, made the ruling. It's the incorrect ruling. You did not know that until you saw the replay. And that's the whole point here. They didn't have the opportunity to look at the replay because they just said, you know what, screw it. We get it, but we have just as good a percentage here of scoring. Like, honestly, they should have. It wasn't the best executed sneak. You don't expect Najee to fumble. I thought the whole over-the-top thing was dead and buried. I don't know why they did that in that situation. Okay, fine. You say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. My point is, looking at the TV, you can make whatever opinion you want. The official on the field made the ruling. He is much closer to it than you were. Just because you saw it is irrelevant. Doesn't make a difference. That's not even the point. What we are arguing is whether or not they should have allowed an opportunity to look at the replay versus taking what they had right in front of them at that moment, which was a lighter personnel that they would have liked to have seen, a quarterback with some mobility, the new rule in place that allows the running back or whoever to push the ball carrier forward, which Najee didn't do for some reason on that play. I don't know why that happened. Part of a slew of errors that they made offensively in this game. Oh, good. NDSU scored. Imagine that. Yes, to summarize, Lance, the replay was conclusive. I don't think they would have overturned. I think they definitely would have overturned it. I totally see, though, why they say we've got what we want on the field. Let's run the play because it's second down. We're at the 1 inch line. We're in 4 down territory. If we don't get in from the 1 foot line on 3 plays, we don't deserve to score, replay or otherwise. I would bet that was their mentality, and I think they would have. I don't like the second play call. I like the sneak, but I didn't like the second play call, the over-the-top thing. Too good of a chance of what happened. And I don't think that's necessary. Yeah, for those of you watching at home, NDSU, North Dakota State University, that is currently getting their tails whipped by rival South Dakota State in the FCS National Championship game, just scored to go down 31. What is it? 31 or 38 to 21 now.
I'm disappointed, Neil, because I was really looking forward to wearing the T-shirt "LA Face with the Oakland Booty." I was really looking forward to wearing, because me and Neil had a bet outside the show. Well, it wasn't a bet, but Neil was like, well, if the Steelers go to the playoffs and they win and NDSU wins, I'm going to get you a T-shirt that says "LA Face with the Oakland Booty." Yes, and I was looking forward to winning. But Justo, if you're new to the program, Neil is a big NDSU fan, and secretly, this is a sub podcast for NDSU football. Go Bison!
I'm an
This
alum,
is
by the way. We talk about Cal Bears all the time. We throw NDSU out there. These
yes,
are alumni
yes,
celebrating our
yes,
team's success. Well,
yes.
your team didn't play today. Mine did and got
Yeah,
completely destroyed.
and my team, we put a lot of pros in the league, but we don't have a lot of success. Yeah, so I was just interested to get your perspective on it because I always wonder, like, how quickly does information get to the sidelines for them to get the information to challenge or not?
It can be as quick as whoever's watching the game.
Okay.
They have broadcast feeds. Keep in mind though, those angles are not necessarily the ones that the officials have down on the field. So you can't watch the TV replay and say this is what the official will look at. Absolutely. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, it was the Raiders against somebody, but what looked like on the TV a very obvious touchdown catch was it called on the field to be an incomplete pass. The replay looked like it should have been a completed pass. They held the call on the field saying it was incomplete, and everybody went completely nuts. The official said after the game they didn't have the angle that made it obvious. So for whatever reason that happens, for me personally, I think it's just a problem with the entire replay system being flawed in a variety of ways. But you can't necessarily count on them seeing exactly what you're seeing. So it is a gamble. It really is.
What's your thoughts on this game overall? I mean, I thought that when I look at this season, and I don't want to put the season in context just yet, but looking at this game, I think there's further evidence that Kenny Pickett is, I think, going to be a solid pro. I think his ceiling is yet to be determined, but I still think he's going to be a solid pro. What's up, Joel Jamie, Double J?
We're going to get to that, I assure you.
And we are going to get to that. And based on Joel Jamie's call, and I'm going to let Neil wax poetic. That roughing the passer was horrible. And the reason why it was such a bad call was Deshaun Watson in the game itself stepped out of about 7 tackles, like 7,000 tackles in the game. So
I wonder how they score that on the stats. If they count broken tackles as being fairly open and fairly loose, he had to have had literally like 20 of them today. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback escape that much pressure. They were all over him. They got him a decent amount of time by the end, and I think that's because Watson was just gassed. He didn't have anything left. I mean, he was running the whole game.
The other thing I wanted to say, my kind of thing about the game, that call was bad. I thought the interesting fumble in the red zone, but the other thing was, and I think I wrote on Twitter, in the game, Kenny, in the game with a score. And I think over these past 3 weeks, in really big moments, you saw your rookie quarterback play really good football. Now, I think as a rookie quarterback, I think he's in the process of being more consistent play to play, down to down, hitting the layups. But man, when the kid is put into a tough situation and he has to make a play and show up big, like there was a funny meme. He has little hands but big nads. I mean, Kenny steps up. Kenny steps up in the moment, and I'm certain that Kenny has convinced that staff and that locker room that he's the guy moving forward. What's your thoughts on this game and Kenny overall in his season?
I thought this was Pickett's worst game in a while today. He did not play well overall. I do like the fact that probably the 2 best throws he made came once again on the last drive. The 2 third downs, but the 2-point conversion throw was a beauty. That was a great
absolutely.
ball. And good on poor Deontay Johnson. He did not score a touchdown this season. That's people don't seem to understand this, how statistically impossible that is. It's almost like he literally was not allowed to score all season. Nobody in NFL history has caught that many passes or had that many balls thrown to him and not scored a touchdown. No one even close. I mean, it's remarkable. But Pickett played well on that last drive. Again, the game wasn't quite on the line the same way, But to put for the whole team, and I want to praise Connor Hayward as well for the way the role that he
Oh, those
played,
are excellent
especially
catches.
after Pat Frymuth went down. It doesn't sound good for him. Speculating, but it doesn't sound like he would have been available next week anyway. So we'll have more on that when that comes out. But that's one to keep in mind come training camp time. If that's a torn ACL, I highly doubt he's going to be ready to go first thing in late July. But the bottom line with Pickett today, not a good game from him, I don't think. But if we are grading him overall, the only thing I can really do is evaluate it against my expectations. He was well above what I thought that he would be, but very similar to how if he was going to be successful, this is what he would look like. The decision making was night and day from where he started. He was a much better, much more confident passer at the end of the season than he was at the beginning. That kind of progression is what you want to see with a rookie quarterback of any type. I can say this too. Trevor Lawrence is for all obvious reasons an incredibly gifted NFL quarterback. It took him until the end of this season to really put everything together. Now he's had, all kinds of issues that we can get into at another time.
That's a great
But
point.
it still took him a while to put it all together. And you're not going to find anybody in history that's as more complete of a prospect than him. Prospect. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame. For what you would like to start a player with at age 22, Trevor Lawrence is it. He's the prototype for that. It took him a while to kind of get things going. And he didn't play particularly well last night. He made some mistakes that I frankly thought were very similar to Pickett. And I would put some of that on inexperience. Lawrence launched a couple passes like Pickett did. Pickett missed 3 touchdowns in this game. Again, probably his worst game that he's played in since the bye. But the overall body of work, we have to be happy with that. There's a lot that you can build with that. I know that seems like the lamentations of a loser, and that's really what the Steelers are. I mean, 9-8, great. You didn't make the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game. You took a step back from where you were last year in one manner of thinking, but the future is better this year, I think, and Pickett is a big part of that. I thought he availed himself very well. He will decide what his ceiling is going to be ultimately. But I like what I saw from him this year. I would definitely keep him. I don't think there's a reason to look quarterback in this draft unless you're drafting a backup at some point. I don't know if they'll do that or not. That's certainly something we're going to talk about here on the New Standard in the future. We've got the business season coming up. My favorite time of the year, to be honest. I'm a nerd like that. Really enjoy it. But arrows pointed up for Kenny Pickett. That's a good thing. We should be excited about what we saw, not where he is, but where he's going. That this is a process. He's got to continue to build.
It's interesting that you said they took a step back in terms of the season in comparison to last year. Because and I don't know if I have my definitive answer for myself yet in terms of, how I want to view this season, but you're absolutely right. They took a step back, but at the same time, I feel much better about their future than I did last year, even though they went to the playoffs. Because last year we knew Ben Roethlisberger was retiring. They had no answer at quarterback moving forward. It wasn't going to be Mason Rudolph. Although they don't go to the playoffs this year, they finish with a 9-8 record. They don't go to the playoffs, but they have a quarterback. And if you have a quarterback and you have a quarterback that can play, he can play. What he'll be, like you said, Neil, the ceiling will be determined largely by him, his coordinator, and the coaching staff, and Maple Mike, the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh Steelers. That's his name on this show, Maple Mike. It's a combination of Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin, Maple Mike.
That's
and so,
roundabout way.
But I haven't really wrapped it around my head. And there's some great comments. And let me jump into some of these comments in terms of, because a lot of times, Neil, you'll make a comment that will help me kind of crystallize my thoughts and opinions. But before I jump into these comments, and we were talking about Kenny and Kenny's arrow going up and his maturation and him getting better. Explain to me how he misses that Sims throw. Is he just not looking at that?
He didn't look. Um, I'll say this, and this is the kind of thing a backup quarterback will look for in film. They tend to study the I don't want to. Oh, frick. Interception, South Dakota State. This one's over. I'm not even going to watch the end of it. We're just going to turn that off. Damn it. I would say this because I have been a backup quarterback. I have reviewed the mistakes, the other throws, the other angles. If you have multiple options on a play, which you don't always, but in that case, you don't see a guy like Sims running as hard as he did. I would say this just on the once or twice that I watched it again, and Pickett's not going to take long to see this either. Johnson, the safety, is coming down just as the slot corner it is moving over a little bit. The guy that was on Sims inside looked like he was picking up something underneath or he was going to blitz. The fact the safety was moving along with that should have tipped Pickett off. I don't think Pickett ever looked that way, though, because the play went to the left. If he noticed the safety coming down on Sims, he's going to know, and especially he knows what route Sims is running or the options that Sims has. He's running a post to a vacant middle third of the field with nothing but a safety on a slot receiver. You want that matchup. You don't want Deontay outside the numbers. You want Sims on a post against John Johnson. The only explanation to me that makes sense is that Pickett didn't see it. He didn't look at it. I'll be honest with you too, before we try to string him up and crucify him for making the mistake that he made. This happens a lot. Okay. Yeah. Quarterbacks miss throws like that. It's unfortunate. That's one he really needs to pick up on, but Josh Allen misses that throw sometimes, or misses the read sometimes. Pat Mahomes misses that read sometimes. You have to take it and factor it into your pregame work, into the evaluation of the playbook. You have to be able to look at those kinds of things. At the same time, though, this is what happens with the Steelers when they don't prioritize a high level production out of their slot receiver. Your quarterbacks don't look at them. And to me, it's not a big deal, but I don't like that. I've never liked that. I felt that I can't believe I forgot his name. Number 17, the little kid, 6 years ago. Ben loved him. Eli Rogers. Eli Rogers was a really good receiver. He was very talented in an offense that did not want to utilize the slot receiver for much more than being an outlet, being a utility guy, trying to help on screens, things like that. If they sent their slot guys deep on plays more often, I think the offense would open up a little bit more. It would freeze safeties a bit more than what they currently are able to accomplish with nothing but just outside the numbers stuff. We saw George Pickens really get into the game today. I thought that was Pickens. Pickens made 4 catches that were just unreal. I mean, Absolutely. One of them didn't count, but my God, that kid's got hands of glue. I mean, it doesn't make sense sometimes how he holds on to the ball. It's good to have that. You can use that to set up other plays down the field. I think to a degree, that's what happened. You had Sims streaking down the middle of the field. And it's just, you saw it in the replay right away. It's like, oh no, the safety moved. You know exactly where he's going to go. Sims knew it straight off the snap. Pickett, I think he just didn't look at it. I'm not trying to criticize him. I'm just saying that there's no way an NFL quarterback wouldn't make that throw. I mean,
you made a good point that the personnel aspect of it, because if it's Juju, he's going to get a look. For instance, if Juju is the slot player, you're not going to you're not going to never look at it. You're going to give Juju a glance. And if you glance that way at all, bad ball, good ball, whatever type of ball, it just needs to be thrown. If it's thrown, it's a score. But that's a great point in terms of the personnel, how the personnel could impact the read itself. But let me jump into a couple of these comments from Double H and from Steeler 63, because I want to get your perspective on how do you view the season, and what do you think is the proper way to view the season, where you go 9-8, you have a winning record, but you finish with the 8th seed, and unfortunately, the 8th seed is not a playoff seed. And Double H wrote the following, and let me put it up here. It was too much to hope for. Luckily, the Jets, Pats, and Dolphins collapsed the past 3 weeks to even put the Steelers in a position to be possible. Oh, well, there's always next year. And Steelers 63 wrote, woohoo, the standard for Tomlin is above 500, but lose to teams like the Jets, which came back to cost him in the end. We'll wait till next year. And so this season, like you, I think, astutely said, was a step back. Some respects, I think, is sort of a step forward in terms of the future because you found your quarterback, but it is a close but no cigar season. Is it fair to deem the season that way? How are you looking at the season? And what do you think is fair? And what do you think how fans should look at this season?
I honestly, and we'll flesh this out in the months to come, Lance, here on the New Standard podcast. But it's going to be really hard to distinguish the differences between this year and last year. I mean, we know things that are different, but the end result is mostly the same. It really is. If you want to say, well, it's because they tied the Lions. All right. Well, this Steelers team went through two quarterbacks that probably 2/3 of the season played substandard football. That's not easy to overcome. When you have the lesser of the two quarterbacks in most of the games you play, that's hard to overcome. Pickett improved, but Pickett wasn't good right away. Yeah, absolutely was not. Trubisky was not good ever, really. Well, when he came as a starter, he was not good. He came on the bench. I thought he did a good job. I think that's probably going to be more of his role moving forward. He doesn't seem to understand that, but all right, I don't blame him. They didn't get good quarterback play for a while. Their line was not good. Their run game was a disaster. They fixed all of that. This wasn't a great team at any point, but they were far better in week 18 than they were in weeks 1 through 5. And don't try to tell me otherwise. There's no way, we can bitch about the Jets loss, the Dolphins loss. There's a lot to bitch about in that. If you get a better quarterback, they win both of those games. But whatever happened with Cincinnati, they would not win that game again in 100 tries. Okay. That was the dumbest win the Steelers have ever had. Okay. And that was a game that went down to the end of overtime for them to hit a field goal after a backup snapper had to come in. If you ever want to know the value of a long snapper, watch that game. You want to see an NFL long snapper versus the poor chode that they put in that got 2 kicks blocked because he was snapping at half speed. Steelers should not have won that game. So in that way, it should be 8-9. We can bitch about the games that they didn't win, that they kind of blew it at the end, or we can say, look, they grossly overachieved in a few of these games. You can go either way. And that was the story of last year. So I'm not sure if it was better or worse than last year. Here's what I know, though. If they didn't move at all from last year, they didn't move, and they're prepared now to take 2 steps forward. I don't think we could have said that this time last year. Agreed. After they got boat raced by the Chiefs, something we knew was going to happen. We had a sense of unknown going into the season. Ben was done. No idea what they were going to do at quarterback at that point. Our last show, Lance, we were talking about Mason Rudolph's efficacy as the starting quarterback. Rudolph! He dressed a couple games, I think.
Rudolph?
But how many you look in, unfortunately, we talked about Dwayne Haskins too, RIP. That didn't work out. They brought in 2 draft picks and a free agent to go along with Rudolph. In other words, they didn't know. They didn't have a sense of it. Now they have that question answered. The backup's going to be interesting. We'll see what they do there. Trade the quarterback question out for a large chunk of their defense. By the way, that's going to be a really
interesting in this offseason.
A lot of moves that they'll make defensively. Now, I'm not even saying replacement. I'm saying that a lot of these guys are either in their final years or they're free agents, especially in the secondary. So we don't know what's going to happen on the defensive side of the ball. I feel, though, the basis of the team that they have, with the exception of their left tackle, their offense, you can add to it now. You have a foundation. Now you need to add some stuff. I like what they did. The exception of the left side of the line, which I understand is, a pretty big exception, but it's a lot better than it was a year ago. Okay. They were looking at replacing all of them a year ago. I think you need to make a move at left tackle. I would not be surprised if they make a move at left guard, but the idea of having the offensive line coach back and an anchor, the offseason acquisitions of the center and the right guard were big. Locking up your right tackle, I think that he did a better job than he's being given credit for. There's a lot of argument about that. You have something that you can hang your hat on. It's not great, but get another year together. And this, I think, Lance, is a perfect segue into discussing the Canadian elephant in the room. Their
Yes.
offensive coordinator.
Yes. And here's the reason why I think you have to move forward from Canada. And yes, there are some things that are always going to be left on the field because players aren't perfect. There's always going to be some stuff that doesn't get executed, like the Sims play. There's other stuff that gets left on the field, and you could probably score better. But to me, the biggest indictment on Matt Canada in terms of moving forward is not necessarily a stat, but I'll give you number one. I don't know if you should trust Matt Canada with the development of your quarterback. That's not something that when I say future franchise quarterback developed by Matt Canada, that doesn't feel warm and fuzzy. That does not feel warm and fuzzy. That doesn't feel uh like if you told me Kenny Pickett, Frank Reich, I'd be like, oh. If you said Kenny Pickett, Doug Peterson, if he were available, huh? If you said Kenny Pickett and Mike McDaniel per se, I'd be like, huh. But when you say Kenny in Canada, nah, man. Nah, man. That I don't want to see that moving forward. The other thing, other reason why I don't want to see Canada on the team, and of course, some of this goes to execution, but some of this goes to coaching. They didn't average 20 points this year. Hell, they didn't average 18. They averaged 17 points a game.
17?
Now it might be like 17.6, 17.9. Let's round up. Let's go 18. They did not average 20 points this year. You got to make a change. You got to make a change. And you can't put this all on the fact that the quarterback is young. I think they have to move forward from Canada. And I hope if they do, they look outside the organization and look for a very good, skilled offensive coach that could be on the market. I like your suggestion of Frank Reich. I thought that sounded very good. I would be looking for somebody that's had a good track record of developing a young quarterback. I think they have to make the move and get rid of Canada.
I think very much along those same lines. I will say this, as much as we want to rip Canada, he got 28 points out of this team today, and that was their worst offensive performance of the last couple games. They executed terribly. Things that are not it's not Matt Canada's fault that Kevin Dotson for some reason is 7 yards down the field on a screen pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Inexcusable, by the way. I can't believe the amount of times that's happened this season. It's ridiculous. That needs to get fixed in the worst way. That's not all on Matt Canada. I like to think that this is something they practice and go over. Those types of screens require timing and precision. They're things that you do need to work on, but it's week 18 for F's sake. They must have had 7 or 8 of these penalties this year. That's insane. You should not be downfield that often. Okay. It shouldn't happen that way. Those types of things bothered me about Canada far more than everyone freaking out over play calling, as if Matt Canada is completely unaware of what the team is capable of doing. If you don't like them running the ball on second down, okay, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think that's a terminable offense. Here's what I know, though. You want to give all credit to Najee Harris with no credit to the offensive line at all, and therefore no credit to coaching or coordination. It's wrong. You can't have it both ways, okay? If that's the case, then Najee Harris has the entire weight of everything on his shoulders, and he just decided to start trying over the last half of the season. They did a great job fixing that problem. It was a significant problem. We ripped on Najee, on the offensive line, on the overall offensive direction most of the season. By the end of it, they weren't great, but it's 3 steps ahead of where they started. And I said at the beginning of the season, it was going to take time for the offense. I don't know how high the ceiling really is because I don't think they really have all that much talent. But Pickens is a star, like I thought he would be when they signed him. He came on much better than I thought he would with limited opportunities because they have a limited team. They need to start with what they have right now. And for me, for my money, I think that includes finding a different direction. I don't feel offensive coordinators get fired as much as what offensive coordinator A does is not what's going to fit the talent that they have.
That's a good
And
point.
there are times in which offensive coordinator B has better insight into something that we feel will be better with this group of people. So I don't like the notion, and this is common, and those who are used to listening to me rant on this show know this. I don't like the notion that people have that an offensive coordinator walks around with a secret notebook, like in The Water Boy, and that's everything. They draw up their plays. They have plays that they like, certainly. They have packages more than anything. That's really what an offense is. It's how you coordinate things, and it's how you communicate things. It's how you take whatever it is, you make the language easy to understand, and you coach to it. That's really what an offensive scheme is, okay? The coordinator puts all of that together. A lot of times you really just need a different set of eyes to look at something. And I think that's more of what the Steelers are going to want to do. Are we keeping them? No, I said that a minute ago. I know I rambled a bit there, but I think they're going to make a change. I couldn't tell you the first bit of who they would hire. I suggested Frank Reich, who I don't think anybody would disagree with, has had a good amount of success within coordinating an offense, certainly within training
And
a
the
quarterback
luck factor and coordinating a young QB.
and a running game. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
You know, Indianapolis, if anything, and I don't know what happened specifically between Frank Reich and Carson Wentz, but I don't think Frank Reich got quality play out of the quarterbacks that he had. They spent a lot of money on quarterbacks who didn't do particularly well. What I understand of Wentz and Reich, and keep in mind too, I know this from several people. I have never met the man, but I have yet to talk to anybody within the NFL that did not have glowing things to say about Frank Reich, at the very least as a person. Frank Reich was all but swearing in postseason interviews last year after Wentz left about Carson Wentz. Wentz did something there that really agitated the people there. Doesn't seem like Washington likes him a whole lot either. So whatever it is that happened there, it didn't work out well. And he got left with really not much to work with this season. Matt Ryan was a shell of himself. It was sad. Matt Ryan's not going to play next season. I sincerely hope he's not going to play next season for his sake. He would have a better quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, and he definitely has the makings of a really good run game. I like Reich for that job. Will they hire him? I have no idea. You know, who they hire for these jobs, it's not nearly as simple as people think that it is. The Steelers don't like coordinators who are going to be head coaches sooner rather than later. We can take that to mean whatever we want, but I will say this. The quality and the skill of an NFL head coach is not to train future NFL head coaches. It's to coach players, okay? They're not there to coach coaches.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
the stupidest thing in the world to get into his coaching tree. Doesn't matter. You have a gimmicky idea. The guys that know it well are going to go somewhere else and do it. The Steelers aren't a gimmicky team. That's not how they coach. That's not how they play. Does that mean better? No, it doesn't. And the Steelers fans, more than anybody, should know this. How many complete and total dumpster fire Patriots coaches have there been?
A ton.
Okay.
Most.
The Steelers don't want to hire people that just kind of regurgitate what they do. They bring something specific to them, but they are also not the types to try to reinvent the wheel. It's not to suggest innovation is not a critical component of the game. I think, to be honest, Matt Canada did a lot of that. How did Derek Watt score his touchdown? They ran that play twice today, and Cleveland had no idea it was coming. I don't think we had an idea it was coming.
No.
Did a great job executing that. That's the kind of stuff that Canada likes to do. The misdirection in the run game, they did a really good job with that. That said, I think they need to find better ideas, better concepts with your new quarterback, with your receiving group, which is pretty shallow, but still expensive to a degree and laden with some talent. You got to develop. You have to continue to develop Pickens. You've got to get more out of Deontay as far as splash plays go, which is also on your receivers coach. But your coordination has to reflect that. They've got to do a better job finding ways to get these guys in different spots to make plays down the field. They can't be as dependent upon the run as they are. So to me, Frank Reich would be great. I think he knows how to do that, but he also knows how to run the ball successfully, knows how to coordinate that effort.
You know, you say it all the time, and that's why I'm going to make this comment. Maple Mike is the OC. I mean, essentially, because, and I say that because
fighting the sun here.
And I say that because the head coach, ultimately, if a head coach wants to run an offense a certain way, it's going to be on the offensive coordinator to do that.
Yes.
So to a certain extent, I think unless you can absolutely convince Mike Tomlin that his pass protection is going to be consistent, I don't think he's going to open it up. He's going to go to what he's used to, and that's being conservative and winning in an ugly fashion and running the football. If you can't convince him that we can protect it and we're not going to turn the ball over, we're going to stay conservative and we're going to play that way. So you got to convince him of that. So regardless of who they hire, Maple Mike is going to be the biggest influencer on offense.
We can just call him, I don't know, Dutch Mike or whoever it is that they hire next year. It's going to be the same thing. Your head coach is your head coach. Okay. With the exception of maybe the Cowboys, I don't think coordinators answer to the owners. The head coach does. Head coach answers the general manager in a lot of more traditional franchises nowadays. Mike Tomlin, honestly, he's the final say when it comes to that. He's been in that position for way too long. Okay. Rooney is not listening to the coordinator directly. He's not implementing these kinds of things. Honestly, I think, and there's logic to this. Okay. As much as we might not like it, there's logic to this. We don't know what's going to happen with our offensive line. We are patching it together. We have yet another new offensive line coach. We have a bunch of new starters yet again. We don't know what this is going to be. We are also brand new with our quarterback. So the line is not used to the quarterback. The quarterback is not used to the line. The coaches aren't used to the quarterback or the line. In what way are they going to run a highly complex, vertical heavy passing game? You're not going to be able to. So the Steelers didn't try to. Now, I understand that doesn't necessarily result in a whole lot of success, but maybe this is why they put a bunch of money into their defense. They have to grow the offense. It had to get over a certain maturation hump, an experience debt. They didn't have enough on the offensive side of the ball together. I don't mean in the league or playing football. I mean together. That problem is mitigated to some degree next year. Not all of it, but it's mitigated to some degree. They still need more talent on the offensive side of the ball. No splash plays for the second year in a row. They didn't try to do a whole lot. Pickett missed deep again a couple times, which is really starting to trouble me now because I didn't see him missing as much in college. Putting the ball where it needs to go. I mean, the guy catches it. That's one thing. Jordan Addison, his junior year against college defenders, yeah, he's going to tear him up deep. Pickett hit him where he was. Pickett missed a lot. I mean, the deep ball to Johnson that he got his hands on but wasn't able to stay in bounds with, that throw was off. He missed on most of his deep stuff. He's got work to do with that, but they are going to be able to open things up more. And I honestly think they'll go in a different direction with a new coordinator. I don't know who it's going to be. To be honest, it's two ways to look at this, Lance. One, you go with their current tradition, which is to promote the quarterback's coach, which very well could be why Mike Sullivan's in charge. So we could just call it the Mike and Mike offense next year. Mike Sullivan would follow the exact template as Matt Canada in the sense that he was
Exactly.
brought in as the quarterback's coach, and then he was promoted offensive coordinator.
Jet
Randy
sweep,
Fichtner was
baby.
around a little bit longer, but still the same thing, quarterback's coach into offensive coordinator. Before that, it was Haley, an outside hire, and Haley lasted longer than all of them. If you want to go the outside hire route, I could absolutely see why they would want to do that. Get some fresh ideas. I really think that that's probably in their best interest. The post-Ben era is over. This is the Pickett era now. You have to kind of figure out how you want to do this. You want to continue to run the ball. They got a lot invested in that. I understand that, but they're going to need to get a much stronger and much more consistent passing game, one in which they don't have 18 interceptions or how many ever they threw this year. They've got to continue to build their young talent. They've got to continue to emphasize protection, and they've got to bring more playmaking ability within their skill positions. And I think there are coordinators out there that can help lead them to that end. But when the rubber meets the road, it's Mike Tomlin. It's not the offensive coordinator, because Tomlin is the one who, in concert with Rooney and Omar Khan, they need to get together to figure out the direction they want their offense to go. And from there, then you hire the coordinator. So to be honest with you, it could be Sullivan. It could be somebody that we don't even think of right now. But my guess right now would, lack of a name. I think Mike Sullivan would probably be the clubhouse leader. But let's just say Frank Reich has the kind of personality that has always been attractive to the Steelers.
Let me ask you.
I would not be surprised if they went after him.
Does Frank Reich have any Western Pennsylvania ties?
He doesn't. He's from the central part of the state.
But he's
Maryland. He's outside. He's from outside Hershey.
Okay,
but
he's Pennsylvania, so he has some Pennsylvania. If he had Western PA ties, I'd be like, well, it's going to be Frank Reich.
If he was from Western PA, the fact that I hate to say this too, this is just me. It seems like oftentimes many on the Steelers staff are devout Christians, which Reich definitely is. There's a sense of leadership that comes from that, from the Steelers' perspective. It's not me saying it. Certainly there are some who do not fit that mold, which is fine, no issues. But I think, just for me, I think Reich checks a lot of boxes, with the exception of, does he want to be an NFL head coach again? The Panthers apparently want to talk to him about their opening. I don't know. The obvious point of this, and I think Felicia brought this up a couple weeks ago when it came up, his ties to the Eagles. And I think that's interesting, but his ties were to Doug Peterson. Nick Sirianni was not a part of that. I'm not 100% sure that they wouldn't bring him back, because frankly, they're going to have 3 coaches get hired away from them this year, I'm sure. Excellent coaching staff that they've put together over there. The coordinator job might be open, but again, Sirianni didn't work with Reich. So we can't necessarily say that's the case, but who's to say the Eagles don't step in and say, look, we're going to bring him home. This is what we want to do. He's going to be the coordinator. I don't know. It's interesting.
Let me jump into this comment from Mark Tobin, and I hope that Mark is wrong. He said they scored 28 points and won like 6 games in a row. He's not getting fired. He's getting an extension, if anything. Let me throw out
what Arian said too.
Let me throw out a couple of numbers. Hopefully, they're looking at so he doesn't get an extension. Kenny Pickett threw 1 touchdown pass today. That gave him 7 touchdown passes for the year. 7. As an offense, their quarterbacks threw for 11 touchdown passes. Before today's game, Kenny Pickett had the same number of touchdown passes as Minkah Fitzpatrick had interceptions. 6. I mean, with that level of production, you can't come back. But I want to switch reels real quick before we conclude the show. And I want to thank everybody who faithfully follows the show. If you're new to the program, please hit us with a like and a subscribe. Big up to, I think this is a new listener, Jake Shoot Stuff. Big up to Jake. I love that name. That's a fantastic name.
He
I mean,
fits right in here with that comment.
that is awesome. And big up to the brothers of Omega Psi Phi, Big Mel and my man Kevin Jones. Big up to you guys. And also big up to any of the brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated who celebrated a Founders Day on January 5th. Like Jake Shoot stuff, historically pathetic in the passing game in a league that encourages big numbers in the passing game. But before we end the program, again, we're going to be doing just Wednesday shows. I'm not sure if we're going to do this Wednesday. We might take a break. We might do some weekend shows.
We left a lot on the board here. We got to do on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, we got it. Well, of course. And so we're going to talk about the playoffs as well. When the seedings and stuff, we're going to jump into that. My thought initially in terms of the Super Bowl, I don't know the seeding, so I don't know if Cincinnati can play Buffalo in the championship game. I don't think they can because they're on the same side of the bracket, 1 and 3. So, but I think after the Hamlin injury and him almost dying, and I'm glad to hear that he's doing much better. That's the best news. I think it's going to be very tough to beat the Bills. I think the Bills are playing. I think they want to win it for him, and so I think it's going to be very tough. And in fact, they're a really good team. But let me ask you about this on the offense. And we were talking about. You made a mention earlier about the offensive line, about Cole, about Daniels. You made a comment about. Replacing the left tackle, and I think they have to do that. I think because Kenny Pickett has showed that he kind of, at this point, in my opinion, kind of overreacts a bit to pressure. They've got to keep him protected and clean. They have to fix that left tackle position. But in terms of questions answered on the offense, let me ask you this: yes or no? I'm gonna say, and when I say question to answer, it's in regards to have they found this position? Have they found their guy to play this position?
Found as in, if assuming the guy is under contract,
yes,
will he be on the team next year?
And be their starter,
like that,
and be their starter. Okay, Kenny Pickett, it will be the starter next year.
Yes.
Okay, Mason Cole will be the starting center next year.
Yes.
James Daniels will be the starting left guard. Was it right guard? Right guard. Right guard next year.
Yes.
They have their wide receiver 1 and 2 in whichever way you want to flip them, Deontay or Pickens. They have their wide receiver 1 and 2.
Yeah, they play different positions. They're not 1 and 2 is a term of fantasy value more than anything. Beyond that, it's a term of priority that you can.
No, I'm just using it in terms of top 2. I'm using
it in
terms of
the top 2 receivers to get the ball the most next year. Yes, it'll be those 2.
Let me ask you about
Johnson's a really tough cut. Unless something happened, I don't think that they would cut him. That's not really much of a point.
Let me ask you this: tight end position, assuming Freiermuth doesn't have a significant injury, and let's hope that he doesn't. Do they have their number 1 tight end?
Freiermuth, yes, barring the injury piece, which he might cost him a good chunk of next season, which sucks, but definitely a good player, definitely a building block kind of guy.
And I'm sure we'll dig into this more as we take a closer look at game film over the course of the year and look at this offense. So and lastly, they have their running back 1 and 2 in Najee and Warren.
It might be among the 5 best running back combinations in the game. I think we'll hear that talked about this offseason quite a bit, and rightfully so. God, I wish Warren got in that last one. I really thought he was in. I really wish he got that one. He earned it.
So let me ask you this. What position group, as we're just looking at it, because I'm going to ask, of course we're going to take a closer look, but what position group on offense, what addition, what position upgrade elevates this offense the most? Just really quickly, in your opinion.
I think what would elevate it, I think you need another receiver. You've got to get another playmaker out there. You need 3 of them in the NFL if you want to be a high-end production passing offense. You need to get that to some degree. The tight end is going to be a really interesting situation. I really like what I saw from Connor Hayward over the last 5 games, capped off by today. Did an excellent job.
He played fantastic today.
And I have liked Zach Gentry as a blocker. I think they would want to keep that around as well. Certainly with Freiermuth, we don't know yet on Freiermuth, but not trying to jump too far ahead and make decisions now. But he's a free agent. More than likely, you'd think he'd go. But a good vertical slot and inline type of tight end would help. But somebody said this in the comments earlier. Those things aside, honestly, I think it's on their line. I think they need more offensive linemen. I think they need guys that can grate in the run game and can hold up, and athletes that are smarter than the 2 it seems that they have at left tackle and left guard, and badasses. They need bullies. That helps the run game. That helps the pass game. It's not just a pass protection thing. You get those guys out of the move. Trent Williams, for example, is a great pass protecting tackle. I think he might be the best offensive tackle in the history of the game. He's up at that level. His value in the run game is unbelievable. He is such a good run blocker. There are so many things they're able to do just off of him. They put him in motion. That's how athletic that guy is. Getting somebody, you're not going to get Trent Williams. If they can get Trent Williams, that would be great. But they need a better space-eating left tackle with the feet and arms that he can protect. They need an upgrade at the position. I don't know how exactly they're going to address that. I would imagine with one of their 3 top 60 picks, they'll draft a left tackle. But I think that's probably their position to gain. And I'm not sure how good their left guard is either.
I'm going to answer my own question in a similar fashion as you. I definitely think left tackle is in the mix because I think they got to keep Kenny secure. Because I think a couple of bad habits were starting to creep up with Kenny, looking to get out the pocket and perceive pressure a bit. They know better than me, of course, how much of that statement that I made is true. Obviously, they coach him every day. They're looking at the film. I think left tackle's in play in my position in the first round. However, I like the way that Cincinnati went about it when they were in a similar position in terms of how they wanted to maximize the potential of their high-value quarterback in Joe Burrow. And now I don't think the Steelers will be in a position. I don't know what their draft status is. And big up to Felicia, who's going to the draft in Kansas City. And Felicia, I need some Gates barbecue, some burn-ins.
Oh, hell yeah.
I need some burn-ins. You need to send them to the show, some hot links, burn-ins. I need some ribs. I'm getting hungry right now. About to go lick my fingers in about 3 minutes when this show ends.
Seriously, I would kill for that right now.
Yes, I would. I'd hit somebody over the head right now for some ribs.
So good.
And big up to Sheba. Big up to Sheba. That's a new name on the program. Big up to Sheba. Thank you, Fee. I need them ribs. Please send them to me and Neil. Yes, and a little bit of rub too, so I can use them because I'm a amateur backyard rib aficionado guy.
Hell yeah.
But the way Cincinnati dealt with it, and of course they had a much higher pick than the Steelers will have, they went out and got Jamar Chase. And what's happened since?
They've blown up offensively.
They have blown up offensively. They added him into the mix with Higgins and Boyd.
They might be back-to-back AFC champions. I wouldn't right now. I might even be picking them.
Yes, and had this not happened with the young man in Buffalo, I was picking Cincinnati and Philadelphia to go to the Super Bowl. Still may happen. Cincinnati is dangerous, and they are absolutely dangerous because when they added Chase to that offense, it took that offense to the next level. They went the route of adding Chase and then going and getting a second-tier free agent tackle in Lyle Collins. That is what I would love for the Steelers to do.
Yep, and I think that's it. We'll get into this. We have months to go over this, and I know that plenty will yell and scream and gnash teeth about it, but Lyle Collins was probably a legitimate top 5, top 15 pick in his draft. Something happened. It was just nuts. He ended up not being drafted at all and more or less told every team, don't draft me. He's just going to go sign somewhere as a free agent and try to get the money that he should have gotten as a draft pick. He ends up with Dallas, does a good job there. He gets paid. He's on the market. Cincinnati gets a pretty good deal for him. He's done pretty well. You can't out and out complain if you're Cincinnati. There are reasonable tackles that you can get in converse to what I was saying a little bit ago as far as Trent Williams goes. You don't necessarily need Trent Williams to have adequate protection. And once again, protection is as much on your quarterback as it is on your line. Okay, the quarterback is the one that calls out the protection. He's the one that's saying this and that. The center makes checks, but the quarterback is supposed to identify what's happening and communicate that to the team. Burrow, for as talented as he is, he doesn't like doing that a whole lot. He's really not. We saw it in the playoffs. When he got sacked 9 times by the Titans, it was not protection that was doing that. He held on to the ball. He wasn't looking to get rid of it. The Titans just brought pressure constantly because Burrow wasn't adjusting to anything. And then Titans, honestly, should have won that game if they had a quarterback themselves they could play. Burrow was just a little bit better than Tannehill was that day. But the Bengals will be a super team when Burrow is controlling more of that. And the more experience he gets, the better off he's going to be. At that point, it's not that the value of the tackle goes down. It's just that what you really want when the quarterback can figure out the game is a high-level receiver who's going to be open when the pressure is coming. That's what Pickett didn't have. He wasn't able to get rid of the ball. He got chased around a good amount in the second half today. Protection wasn't good today. You can get better pass blockers. I'm not saying that you can't. But when your quarterback doesn't have a good sense of what he's doing, your protection isn't going to do much. It's a full effort. It's a full unit thing. God, you guys are killing me with this. I am so flipping hungry right now.
Yes. Brisket talk and barbecue talk ribs is strong in the chat. I'm like, man, I'm about to end the show right now. Get me a burger or something because, man, I would love some brisket, some hot links, some burnt ends. It would be fantastic. But we're going to end the show, man. We're going to go ahead and end the show, man. This has been a fantastic season. We are almost at the point where we can be monetized. So if you are on and listening to the program right now, please, if you have not, give us a subscription. We are going to be coming on on Wednesdays like we normally do. And I'm going to just call it here right now. We're going to do some playoff stuff because although the Steelers aren't in the playoffs, we're all football junkies. And so it's going to be interesting because I think that Dolphins matchup against the Bills, given Tua plays, is going to be a very interesting game because Miami moves the ball really well against the Bills. They played a fantastic offensive game when they went to Buffalo the last time they played. And it's very interesting to see divisional teams play in the playoffs when they play that third time.
Those are fun.
And those are really fun games because those staffs really know each other. And both those teams are 1-1, each with a home win. And so that's going to be a fantastic game. So we're going to hop on for the playoffs. We'll probably just pick the games and do something just do something with that of that nature. But again, if you have not subscribed to the program, please give a subscription and a like. And Felicia, Mel, Kevin, hey man, we'll ship you some addresses so y'all can freeze dry some meat or however you ship meat. And
I don't even care. Do whatever you want.
Send us some meat. You can send me a cow and I slaughter the cow myself or something. You can just season it, but you can send us some meat and we'll be eating barbecue ribs or something on the next program, licking fingers. But with that, we are going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers. Great season.